We have Kathi and Annie with us today, both experts within the German market or I guess the whole DACH region. So they have experience from different D2C brands and worked a lot with influencer marketing. And today we're going to talk about what we need to think about as a brand when we enter a new market like Germany. So let's get started. And the webinar we had like a year ago or more, and we talked about Black Friday. You share so much insights, and I think we touch on a lot of things that is important to kind of consider when you working in Germany specifically. And I mean, that's your expertise. Of course, you know the whole DACH region, but I think this call would be interesting to hear more about just that. Like I said, like if you were a founder, I don't know, running your brand in Sweden, UK, whatever, France, and you're thinking like, let's take over Germany, a huge market, great potential, a lot of high income people. What should you think about when you enter a new market like Germany? And maybe specifically talking about like influencer marketing, but also in general, I think just paid social could also be interesting. But to start with that, like, what would you say, because you work with other brands before in different markets like France, Spain, Italy. Is it something unique with the German market when it comes to influencer that you really need to think about compared to like other countries?
Yeah, I would say mainly there are a couple of steps that you really need to consider and think through. First is, of course, the right selection of influencers, because influencer marketing became quite, how do you say, differentiated in the last couple of years. And I mean, of course, there's also a lot of platforms now. When we were still running, Hello Body influencer marketing, we had mainly Instagram as our channel, and we were trying, to understand TikTok. But nowadays, TikTok, of course, is a very huge part of the influencer marketing mix. There's also YouTube, there's Twitch, and so on and so on. And there are so many different types of influencers nowadays. You really need to differentiate between branding, performance, UGC creators, and so forth. So I think understanding who to choose basically for which kind of purpose is very important, and also really understand that the market works a little bit differently, because, for example, in the US market, I think it's very easy to start with some gifting campaigns and just check out, okay, who's responding to our first marketing activities and take it from there. But in Germany, also micro-influencers already most of the times have managers, which doesn't mean that gifting is not an opportunity to really collect some data and learnings, but it's not a growth strategy in Germany. So this is also something that we can maybe talk through a little bit more. And of course, it's the right approach of contacting, reach out to influencers, and then, of course, how to track campaigns and really take the learnings from there and optimize.
So influencer selection, influencer contacting, influencer campaigning, influence branding, and last but not least, so like how you further fuel your relations. I think that those are like maybe 5 main steps we could talk about today when you want to conquer the German market. I think when you start with selection, it's also, I think you said it earlier to me, like we remember when we had a Swedish brand that we helped, scaling up in the German market, and they were like, so they were reaching out also to people who were non-native speakers, so people who spoke English living in Germany, because it was easier for them, right, to brief them and to negotiate with them. But in the end, like, you would think Germans are very fluent in English. They might be, but in the end, they might not get triggered as much by content that is not their mother tongue, right? So I would recommend strongly to really close German profiles to really fully make use of the potential of someone's community. Because there might be some people who will be interested in your product, even if it's in English, but might not feel maybe you couldn't fully transfer the message of the Instagram story, or maybe they were not really, they didn't feel fully informed because they didn't get all the information because they didn't understand it fully. So I really recommend that if you want to enter a market of another language, you might need someone who native there, who might be also able to close native profiles, so you get the full potential of conversion.
I've heard that too. Like really, if you, especially if you want to do collaborations, they cannot be a German talking in English. Like they need to kind of speak German and run the whole campaign collab in the local language. I would say it's the same for France, but that's super. So then if they want to do this in-house, they kind of need someone that can write the emails in German, or what's the...
We would recommend either if you want to really, set everything up in-house, start at least with some interns or working students that you can actually brief its strategy on, and they can really, approach them in their native language, or work with external experts in the beginning to set up some learnings and reach out, and then take it from there at some point in-house.
But you also you can use, of course, internet and work with students for translating stuff, but you should also keep in mind that you cannot just copy and paste the strategy that might work in your market onto the German market. I mean, take, for instance, the UK and the beauty image they have. It's more makeup driven, it's more makeup focused, it's more about really decorative cosmetics, whereas in Germany you have a more natural and more, I would say, rather clean approach. Similar to the Nordics. Nordics are even more natural and cleaner in the perception of what beauty means, whereas it's German people. But you cannot just, if you're a makeup brand, take what's working for the UK and translate it onto the German market. So you do not only need to be sure that you reach out in the German language or in the native language of the influencers you want to close for your brand, but you also need to make sure, hey, do I need to adapt my marketing strategy or the content that the influencers are supposed to talk about?
Totally. I mean, in addition to that, it's not only about influencer selection, but of some know-how about the communities, right? So how do the communities work? What kind of interest do they have? What are the hot topics maybe also in Germany at the moment? Because,
what could that be, like hot topics?
Well, for instance, at the moment, it's all about, we have a huge discussion about, some right-wing political extremists, and there's a lot of stuff going on social media at the moment. Sure. So this is also something, for example, that you need to know, because if you place a lot of budget now and there are people, talking about political stuff, and which is quite outrageous at the moment here. So you might lose potential on reach. And also, I mean, if you're maybe not sensitive enough to that topic, there's also potential to connect some shitstorm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, risky.
These are some sensitive topics, of course, that you need to know when also to decide to enter the country, to say, okay, when is the right time,
Yeah. But also you might want to know what other circle of friends they have. I remember back at Hello Buddy, we had influencers who would hang out in private with each other. So if you placed a story at a bunch of them, you automatically increased your touch points, because it was very likely they have shared audiences, right? So, which is also a tool that we use with Scope, right? Identify that. But of course, sometimes you need maybe someone local expert who already knows, who's hanging out with whom, and
Sting.
Such a great insight that the link just went off for just a moment. Wow. That's a thumbs up, right? Come on, that's it. What's happening? What?
So you want to...
Yeah, and maybe other than that, it's also... maybe other than that, also what, for instance, are the current average CPMs in Germany per platform. I mean, you need to knowledge, because I would assume in the US it's probably a bit higher than it is. I know it's higher than Instagram, or I do not necessarily know whether it's higher on TikTok, but I would assume it is, because they're just a bit further developed there, have already branded corporations there online for a longer time than it is in here right now. But you don't want to overpay or maybe go too high into the negotiation. If you're coming from LA, for instance, and you would have a CPM net of, 80 euros or more, that would be roughly double on average what you would like to aim at for entering to the German market. So this is something you might also want to take into consideration when thinking about entering the German market. What is the current CPMs, or what might be other KPIs who might differ to the ones at home?
Yeah. But when we then jump into CPM and all that, like on Instagram, what's the benchmark? What do you say in Germany? What's too much? Obviously, this is always connected to your product or business, because if you have the best lifetime value on your customers, you can probably pay more and then it's easier. But like in general, like when should brands think like, wow, now I'm overpaying?
Average CPM on Instagram at the moment is 40 euros. Well, of course, you have profiles that have very high quality communities where you're happy to pay more, because also, of course, the results are better. But in general, I would say CPMs of 100 euros and more are a red flag, and should really go in depth and negotiation, really try to consider and figure out what is the value of this particular ambassador, and are we willing to take that risk? Because also, I mean, most of the people are trying to then talk you into a brand value at some point. And I mean, everyone loves brand value, but you really need to consider, okay, is this particular ambassador and then also somebody that feeds into my branding values and my branding purpose?
We have a creator in Germany for one of our current clients, for instance, and she's carefully selecting who she's working together with. So she also knows it has to be very authentic, also from her side. And we have a CPM of 65 euros for Insta stories plus reminder, but she has like 22.5, 23K story views, and on average more than 1,500 clicks. So this is a CTR of almost 8%, which is insanely high. So receiving those insights, we were like, okay, of course we then pay over average for her, because we were pretty sure it's going to work, and it did. But of course, you cannot always have this one right formula. Does the CPM go with it or not? But there are some other things you might take into consideration. But the 40 euros, I would say, is average CPM on Instagram. A bit higher in stories, but lower on Reels.
Yeah. But it's good for just brands to know kind of when it's a little bit too high, red flag, or when you really need to negotiate down the price. How do you guys? What's your recommendation on how to negotiate? I mean, I've heard you should not be maybe too tough, but sometimes I hear like, just give a proposal, like this is what we can pay. If it's not working for you, that's fine. But like, what's the ideal way? Get more stuff, content? Yeah, tell me like
more quality of sort. There is podcasts for influencers, social media marketing, but I think we can. I mean, what I try to do is, if we are not getting, that close. I mean, it's a different. If they start with 10K and you wanted to have 4K, it's too far away anyway. But if you, sometimes I try to say, okay, let's do 2 test stories, and for the first 2 stories you pay X euro per story, and then after that we check, and if the performance was there, we can gladly increase something like that. But it's more a technique I use with talking to managers.
Yeah,
if to creators directly. I rather try to explain that we also need to be profitable, and they need to be line. What you can also do is try to have a minimum like line. If you say, okay, for instance, you book a reel and you say, okay, on average you have that views. If it's lower than X, then you need to do an Insta story on top or something like that, so you can secure. That's also a great tool to use on TikTok. So you pay what you want, like if it's reasonable. But you say if the views stay lower, then there needs to be extra content promoting your product.
Okay, so they still get kind of the money they want, the budget they want, but you can potentially get more.
You have a security, because at the moment, as an algorithm keep changing all the time, is you don't always know when you buy a TikTok video for someone who has an average 100,000 views. What if it's only 20,000 views? Then of course, you will have less reach, less conversions and stuff. So it is, I think, crucial at some point in a certain spend to secure that. And this might be a negotiation technique you can use.
That's super smart. And Kathi, you mentioned also specific for the German market, like the gifting, seeding campaigns that kind of used to work very well in all markets. I know it works well in like maybe the US, UK, that's very common. Obviously, it's bigger markets, maybe that's why. But so if you cannot really do that on the German market, what's the way to start with influencers? Like, what's your initial strategy just to start getting some awareness for sales? Like, if you start from scratch.
At all anymore. But my point was that you can't really put a strategy or like an expectation on it, like number wise, because back in 2019, 2020, that was like a very important part of our marketing mix. We used to do that every time we launched a new product, and there was a big seeding gifting campaign going on, and we could expect, like a certain amount of postings within a certain amount of time to really push traction. And it was amazing. But nowadays you can really see that we're still doing outreaches like that, but response rate is very, very low. And if so, people are trying to negotiate a certain budget. And even on affiliate level, it works to a certain degree. It really depends on how big are the accounts. That's for sure. But I would say like it's something that you can, look onto it as an additional step in your marketing mix. But I wouldn't say, okay, you know what, you want to enter the market first. You don't, of course, I mean, every brand, if you want to enter a market, you want to do it on a very cost efficient a strategy, right? So approach. So what are you doing? You're trying to get as much data points, and what are you trying to do? You do a gifting campaign. But this is something that probably will not work, because you may end up contacting 100 people, and you may end up in 10 people agreeing on getting the product, testing it, and out of that maybe 8 will post. And so this is not something that you really can do a marketing plan on it.
And also then, I mean, you can share a code on something with them, and you can share a brief with them, but they are not in any way committed to following that or to promoting a code. So even if you do a gifting nowadays, there might be talking someone about your product, but you have very less control to kind of guide what they will say. And then you have to think about, this might be the first touch points potential customers have with your brand in that market. Do you really do not want to give any guidance, or do you really do not want to be able to somehow form what the words are that they're saying? I mean, if you are having a like low paid deal, you can share a briefing, you can expect them to follow the briefing. Of course, they will use their own words, but you have some guidance over it. As if you're just doing gifting thing, the people posting about it, they might also shit about it. Right?
On the other hand, it's not like you need a huge budget to enter the market. It's not like you need at least 20, 30, 40, 50K to really go and get some, like traction and awareness. We usually say to collect first data per flight, 5,000 euros media budget is fine. Per flight.
Yeah.
And with that, you can easily go and get a great reach. I mean, just you the math, right? We want to aim for a CPM of 40 euros, and we have a budget of 5,000. And there's something that we can do with it, and we can collect a lot of data. And that's what we actually do with some clients very successfully, and do it on a performance level. So it's not like Germany is super expensive. You can definitely still, do a hands-on marketing approach, and it will work at some point, but you need to know how.
I mean, we already proved that, right? We were working with a B2C beauty tech company specialized in tanning products from Sweden. And I mean, they were huge in Sweden already. They already performed quite okay-ish in the German market, but they entered with bigger profiles already, with macro profiles, higher spend, and the profitability was sometimes there, sometimes not. It was not a strategy that for the market, like tailored for the market. So what have we done?
Scalable.
Yeah, it was not scalable, exactly. And what have we done? We started the testing then with some micro and nano profiles, some smaller profiles. And once we have identified the right content angle and the right storytelling, then we were also recontacting the bigger profiles they already had and some other ones. And we could scale that up. And after 3 months, we have multiplied the net revenue by 4. So this great result, and this is the way you need to do it. And in the original testing, it's just as Kathi perfectly explained, we had a lower budget, but we had enough budget to test. You need to have some budget, but I think 5K per flight is fine. Normally, I have a flight within a month. Sometimes it's 6 weeks. Depends on the niche and the content niche you are in. But this is the way we approach it for our clients, especially when they want to enter new market.
But that's cool. So it's better to put some budget on nano micro just to get commitment, lower risk, lower payment, like kind of micro payments, still the same CPM. So you healthy CPM, do that so you really can not control, but at least give a brief. You know that they got a post. And
don't control. Of course, we're not putting the word in their mouth. But
no, exactly. And just so you know that they're gonna
write the briefing, and in order to write the briefing, expect them to follow the briefing. This is hard on the gifting.
Yeah, but I mean, the difference is it's a strategic approach, right? Because you just have some working thesis that you're working on, saying like, okay, these are the niches that basically work for us in our headquarter country or home country. And those are the ones that we want to test. And those are the communication angles that we want to try. And then we just take that, we put a little bit of budget, and then we really try to sort it and say, okay, these per flight, this is the learnings, the data that we want to collect. And then let's see if those niches or communication angles work. And then we really look onto the data, and then data-driven wise, we see where we can optimize and how to conquer, per niche. Because I say I'm really focused on conquering niches first, because what happens is that you really can focus on target groups, and it's easier to grow in a niche and then from the niche go into like a more general approach, because otherwise you're going to try, to work to have some testings there and there and there. And what happens is that you don't have a strategic learning approach. Right. Well, in fact, no one knows, okay, why did this specific post work and the others don't? But what we're doing is like on this very strategic approach is that we're trying to sort of A/B test in influencer marketing to really check, okay, this is the working thesis. This is what we did. It worked. Yes. Okay. Let's move forward this way. This didn't work. Okay. Let's don't spend any more on that niche because that's not where we want to grow in the future.
And I think that on a second step, so once the first testing phase is done, you had some first successful flights, and then you're on the one hand, you're scaling up then your spend because you have identified what's working, but then you can also start gifting because then you have a traction in the market. Right. So profiles you're reaching out to will be more likely to respond. So also you're efficient, right? In comparison to doing it at the very beginning with no traction in the market. And then you will also close more profiles because they will see, oh, they work with deals together. Maybe I should put some effort into it and post and maybe follow potential briefing so I can become one of the brand ambassadors. So you need to also you are going to create some desire also for smaller growth to provide great content. And this is basically why gifting is still a good thing, but I would not build a growth strategy on it, especially not in the beginning, but rather at a second or third step.
I mean, and this example also something where I would say let's work with the brand ambassador, but it should be someone that has a halo effect on all the other influencers, because then it's like it feeds into acquisition costs, it feeds into CPM negotiations and so forth. So this is something where, for example, when we've been asked, okay, I want to work with some macros, who should we pick? Then we would always say, look for someone that has a special halo effect on the niche that you're trying to conquer, because then,
this will pay into closing also the performance creator from that niche. So if we select brand ambassadors, someone with such a halo effect, we always check, maybe some of the performance creators we already have or we want to have, let's check whether they are following this person, this halo effect. Because if so, it makes double the sense for us to close.
And this is where we use scope.
I love the word halo effect I use social clusters, but it's super interesting. Being you mentioned niches, in the end, what we're talking about is kind of like tapping into small communities. So if you know that Lisa is the top performer, you would love to work with her, but it's too soon. Like you need to wait. You have no brand in Germany, but talk with her friends and the other ones in that same bubble. Because one of the questions I had also, Germany is a huge country, 80 million people. There's a huge country and there's different regions. Would you say do we need to think about what region we should focus on, or is it just more like niches? That's better approach.
No, it's niche, definitely. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. If you want to do an e-com D2C brand, then it's a whole country and you focus on niche. If you have some store openings you want to push, of course, then you have to maybe try to sort out influencers. So then you have, I mean, most people are not only following an influencer coming from one specific city or region, at least not in Germany. And the difference between those regions are in a slight change of dialect, or maybe not so light, but depends on where you are. But I think the basic thing to convert people for e-com sale is not that different. It might be different from bigger cities rather to suburbs, but this is still something you can. Even that, no, I would focus in niches. I would not have a regional differentiation in strategy for the German.
Yeah. And when it comes to the
market, it might be the case, but it's not in here.
Yeah. What's the trend in Germany with like discount codes, promotion, pushing for sales compared to, the trends we see is more and more like just organic TikTok type of content that maybe you later convert them through ads, or you building up. Like, what's the trend in Germany? Like, does it still work with discount codes, or what's the update around that?
Well, I mean, we know each other for a long time, right? And when we were dominating with the Hello Body, it was definitely a discount code game, or I would also already call it a war of discount codes. No, it totally changed in the last couple of years, and people are driven by content, by value. Educational content works best at the moment. People are actually using TikTok as their new search engine, also in Germany. So this is something where you should definitely make some ground and win some ground, because this is going to fuel your strategy for a long time. And we definitely still use incentives, also for reasons of trackability, of course, and performance evaluation. But in the end, I would say a standard discount code is about 15% of the cart value. Everything else is considered not really a brand value.
15, maybe 20. It's
maximum. Otherwise, it actually will have a negative impact on the brand, because people will be less will have some trust issues, I would say. I mean, especially if it's a new brand.
Yeah, that will say, if you have also a client where their average discount is 20%. And for instance, sometimes they give out 25% on special occasions, very rarely though, because they know it can be perceived as negative. But if they do, of course, existing customers are very embracing that a lot. But they are already in their market for over 3.5 years, so that's different, right? No, but I also think maybe it's not so much about promotion and code. It's more about personalized or individualized. Like this whole influencer marketing journey from A to Z has become more personal and more individual, from sourcing content, also for briefing. You cannot, like a few years ago, you might have been able to send out a brief for like a whole niche, like 20 times the same brief, you just change the code and the link. And this was fine because we were all maybe beauty, makeup, focused profiles whatsoever. Great insight again. But now it's more like you have to really create individual story in your briefs already, so they will be included in the everyday story or everyday video life of the creators as natural as possible. If it's it's gonna be perceived too strongly as an ad, and this might lower your conversion because people will just skip over it. It needs to be It needs to come natural within the content flow of the specific creators. And this is something you also, because Germans are very looking for authenticity, for trustworthy, so you need to create this trust, and this is the best way to do it. So this is a movement I would rather focus on. Personally, like.
What would you say then? Do you need to personalize the brief and really go through all their content and understand, like, okay, she usually posts like this, so she always do this day, this is my day, and then you can have, or how, if you're a brand, like, how should you think about where you so you're making sure that you get this personalized.
The funny thing is when clients ask us and we are like closing them as our clients, they're also like, oh, okay, you're putting a lot of hours in your offer. And I would go, well, you got to see. And then after a few months, they're like, okay, you're creating each brief individually, but it's working. I'm like, yeah, because now at the moment, this is what you need to do in order to keep a profitable growth. So I think this is the key at the moment. Of course, it needs more work coming from your influencer department, but you cannot just share one briefing doc with 30 profiles and expect all of them to be evenly profitable. That's not working at the moment. And so I think it's more about the content and the storytelling rather than the promotion. This had shifted, at least for the German. Yeah, in general, Switzerland, Austria.
Yeah. And another thing I was thinking about actually to ask in the beginning, but is it anything for brands, in other countries? Do they need kind of like a checklist, like a German site, etc., before they even think about like going into the market? So kind of like, what do they really need to even succeed? Obviously, budget you mentioned, 5K minimum, that's great. But like, what else would you say is like when you look at brands that want to enter and you're like, oh, but you need to change this, you need to think about this. Like, do you have like a general checklist that you kind of, well, yeah.
I think endurance is important. You cannot expect to enter a market and directly be positive or profitable. It happened. It already happened to clients of ours, but it can also take a while. It depends on product, brand, etc., competition, how the market landscape looks like. Of course, that's a marketing given. I personally recommend brands to enter new market once they have figured it out for their market.
Yeah.
And you have a leg to stand on. Then if the first few months might not be as profitable as you wished for, you still do not get in trouble. Even if a lower testing budget of 5K is possible, you need to know that testing might take 2 to 3 months, depending on the product. And we also were in touch with some brands who have not figured out their market and already want to enter another market.
Yeah.
And as an example, the Swedish brand of ours, they had figured out their market, and then they were building up the resources, like to enter new markets. And I think this is a very smart move.
Connecting to your question, Payam, concerning the checklist. Well, of course, you need a German online shop for sure. Just like reconnecting to a US one, even if like these features of language change, but then it's like, okay, it's not, and shipment as well, because if people in the checkout figure out, they, for example, have a lot of shipping costs because shipping is international shipping because you don't have a fulfillment center in Germany or in Europe, this is going to be a huge conversion killer. Because German people are so used to same day or next day delivery because we're all like Amazon addicts.
They just check us Berliners with the same day. Oh, well.
So I would say like within a shipment has to arrive within 2 to 3 working days latest to really have like a nice customer experience to secure that. And I think that's very, very crucial for new brands to conquer the market. And this is also something that brands underestimate because it's really like the first real touch point the brand has. So this really has to be on point. And also customer service needs to respond within, I would say, 24 to 48 hours latest. Otherwise, it's also latest. Because this is also something very, very crucial. Everything that's like after sell experience is also very important, and this actually use influencer marketing again, because influencers in Germany are also kind of the first customer service touch point, because they follow the recommendation of the influencer, right? So when they're like, okay, you recommended me that brand, I placed an order, I didn't receive an order confirmation, or I don't know what's going on, they will first talk to the influencer. So this is something that really like brands need to know and say, okay, in order to also maintain that relationship with my ambassador, this is something that I really need to take care of.
Exactly. And if you consider that you are maybe having 1, 2, 3 test stories of the influencer before generating a long-term contract, and then they get a feedback out of their community, hey, I didn't get my order, the product was broken, no one's texted me back, they might cancel on you. And here's, if you want a checklist, then I would also say this, the whole shopping experience needs to work. And also from my side, before you enter market, get your own market successful and then enter new market.
And please have a social account. I mean, you can totally use your international Instagram account or from your home country, as long if it's still, like English. People don't care, but they really want to check out on you, and they want to check out the shop, they want to check out reviews, and they want to check out your Instagram account. And those touch points are needed also for influencer reach out. First thing they do is they're going to check your own social account. If it's like TikTok, Instagram. So this is something that really needs to be in place.
Also, if you consider you want to start also some non-micro profiles for a very low cash burn rate during the initial testing phase of entering the market, most of those profiles do not have an email address. So you need to DM them. So from where to DM? If you DM them from a brand account, it might already also have a blue check mark. It's more likely that they will read and answer. If just some influencer marketing manager DMs them with their own private profile, forget it. It's not going to work.
It's pretty obvious, but I can imagine that some brands don't think about it, just having a social account. But
it's hit us already.
yeah, I can imagine it. But does it have to be? I know some they have like a local Instagram just for German. Like, is that necessary, or can they just use their?
Well, it depends. So if you want to use your social media account mainly for just sharing the brand vision, the brand values, new product, on a more international level, or maybe also using for getting in touch with influencers, then one account is fine. If you want to monetize this account, if you want your social media account to be your best influencer, have a person there, the face of it, really local offers, local street dates, local events, local product launches, Insta Live, sharing codes, links, giving exclusive access via, a close friends list, what we also did with Hello Body in the initial phase, and to really use this as a sales channel, then you need a local one. Also for TikTok, not only for Instagram.
Hey, that's why some are really localizing it. Cool. So if you would summarize the checklist, what would that be then?
Successful own market, to use some insights already. Whole shopping experience needs to be on point, especially with delivery and customer service. And then I think you need local experts, or somehow the local expertise, because you cannot try the strategy one-on-one.
And please don't Google Translate to translate your shop.
Yeah.
People will notice.
Yeah. And if you don't have any other way, then rather go with ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Then anything else that you feel like, you just said Google Translate, avoid that, but anything else that you've seen that people brands should stop doing when they enter German
shops, online shops that were really, really not suited or tailored for the German customers. It might have been the right thing for their initial market where they already had its success, but Germans, they like really clean and not too vibrant colors. It depends on, again, what you're selling, right? Of course, but it needs to have a certain quality. Cannot look too self-made, I would say. So your shop to really deliver visually, but also, of course, payment methods, for instance. If you don't have credit cards, on bill deliveries, really famous in Germany. So you ship the product and you ship the bill, and they then transfer the money. Yeah, PayPal would offer Klarna. So payment providers is also a hot button issues. We have people who only offer credit cards, and that's not that famous in Germany. Maybe especially interesting for the US players who want to enter the German market.
Well, and also when it comes to gifting or influencer marketing in general, at some point you will have some encounter with German tax law.
Yeah.
Because basically influencers don't want to have giftings anymore because they need to claim them on their taxes. So there might be some cases where they ask you to, issue that for you. It's not a big deal, but this is also something that you might encounter.
Yeah, or you have to come up with a product loan contract, which is something we already for some clients, because then the influencers have a proof of concept that they received the product, and after they send it back. That's like, there are some things you need to take into consideration with German law.
But is the quick solution just to pay them?
Yes.
Like, so if you don't do the gifting, you pay it up, then you can kind of just do the legit way, and then think about it too much.
Yes, you have a contract then.
Yeah, is that also the case? Like you always have contracts?
Agreements at least.
Yeah. Agreements, like one pagers. As I said, I would recommend it, especially for people with a spend behind to have testing 1, 2, 3 testing touch points. Then it's also in your own interest to close the contract for maybe at least 6 months, because if not, prices will increase. Prices have increased tremendously, especially in the last year. So it's also kind of, to protect your own profitability, to maybe close some people via an agreement or contract. And side effects, like you don't have to deal with the product loan contract.
Yeah, exactly. This is great. But anything else before we kind of summarize the call? Like anything else that you would like to all bashers know about?
Be brave and do it. There's still plenty of space in the German market. I wouldn't say it's overcrowded. Of course, it's not like the Wild West that we were lucky to be in a couple of years ago. Of course, you need to be very on top of your data and look closely on what's going on. But there's still a lot of opportunities in Germany, and I hope some of you guys will, think, okay, maybe let's do it and just give it a try.
And if you know people who are having a great network or who can introduce you maybe to someone, it's always better than to just, have a cold approach with emails, because those influencers get tons of mails. It's always better to have someone who can introduce you, connect you, or even maybe hire someone who can support you locally, at least for the first few months, until you have entered the market and you have figured it out and can do it on your own.
Yeah, let's hope more brands will enter the German market.